was the perfect name for Warhol in the 60s, the combination of Dracula and Cinderella.
Andy was an enabler.
Really?
Nobody wanted his artwork at the time.
I think he's queen of the pop art.
He was the one that had the guts to save the Velvet Underground.
And these guys yelled at us, "You fucking play that again, we'll beat the shit out of you."
On drugs, on speed, on amphetamine.
These were people who were non-functional, dysfunctional.
I never in my life believed that these things would be considered films.
He did 2 hours of my ass. I have the most famous ass in the world.
A glittering facade?
A glittering facade.
Silver goes with stars.
I don't have any favorite color because I decided silver was the only thing around.
Well, in the beginning, they were actually rather hard to track down because being the way they were, they didn't stay in one place very long. So we'd have to go to some of the parties that some of the groups all hung out together, and tracking them down to these little apartments where they were usually evicted after a while. It became a very interesting search. But once we got them, they just couldn't have been more lovely, and it was just nice for them to shine.
Andy was a conduit. He really wasn't interested in the things most people are interested in. The Velvet Underground, the songs were rebellious. The art was rebellious then. So you stay there, but I believe that after Warhol was shot, he was afraid. It was scary.
So you couldn't expect him to be the same Andy that he was before the shooting. After the shooting, I felt the trauma of this whole thing so much that I stayed in my darkroom and only came out at night. I never came out in the day because I couldn't be lighthearted. And Andy made believe he was, or it was sort of like a cardboard Andy. It wasn't a real Andy anymore.
Do you find that you're sort of swamped a lot by the days with the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed? Do you find you're harassed by that?
I can't say harassed, but I just find it very tasteless, really. Because already that I'm still alive, I'm one amongst the few that are still alive. Because I know that the audience likes, cliches.
I made Andy's last movie. And he shot it right after he got shot. But this dreaded thing that hung over Andy, there was this, people really hated him. He got shot at several times. And he told me he died. He says, "I died, Louis." He says, the light at the end of the tunnel went out.
Andy was good for some people and not others. And so he inspired admiration just as he inspired enmity and hatred. It's no accident that Andy is shot. When you become so famous, so much of an icon, then there's somebody laying in waiting to possibly. He was at the cutting edge or the beginning of the age that we live in now, of technology, and in the future we won't want our 15 minutes of fame. We'll pay dear for our anonymity.
The most wonderful thing about living.
The most wonderful thing about living is to be dead.
Just a perfect day. You made me forget myself. What he did do is he made it all possible.
one, by his backing, and two, before we went in the studio, said, you've got to make sure, use all the dirty words, and don't let them clean things.
Regrets? I've no regrets. No. Except that I was born a woman instead of a man. That's my only regret.
I've heard that one before, yes.
One time I was in my father's loft and starving to death. I went down and I found some soup. And Al came home a little while later and asked me if I was hungry, and I said, no, I just had some soup. And he leafed the cans out of the garbage and said, do you know what this is? And I said, yeah, Campbell's tomato soup. And he said, no, that's an Andy Warhol signature. So they say when you're really, really hungry, you know, food tastes great when you're really hungry. Let me tell you, it tastes even better when you're really hungry and it's art.
You go to Eisenstein, to Renoir, to Rossellini. Nobody can make films like Renoir. Nobody can make films like Eisenstein. And nobody can make films like Andy. He used everybody around him to produce that whole body of work that cannot be repeated. Nobody can repeat that.
We were aware at the factory what we were. We could feel the power, we could feel the dynamic of the vitality of the whole thing being the hot spot in Manhattan, of the center of the art world. But I really didn't have an intent to document. I was just a photographer or an artist who Andy gave a camera to.
Today as an artist, I really racked my brain, my violet brain, to find out what shall I be doing, because you know, I know it's so transient and it's going to last 5 minutes or maybe 15 minutes if I'm lucky. You know, Andy, when he was much younger, wanted to be a tap dancer. And to be a tap dancer, you got to levitate from the ground. And Andy could not levitate from the ground. So he said, gee, I'm going to go into art, because there's no criteria in art. Anything goes.
Gee, I wish I could sing or hum.
Could hum, couldn't you?
I don't know how to hum. I can't even whistle.
No, see, I'm way past my time, actually. But there's no one here anyway. Now they're waiting for me to go on. I have to appear before my public. I have to appear before the 3 people who showed up.